Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. First things first, if you wouldn't mind giving me a like and a subscribe, I would really appreciate it. This week has been a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions. There's been so many highs and lows, and it's been really difficult to film as well because the wind and the weather has been atrocious. So I do apologize for not getting everything I wanted to film on the video this week. Now, before we go any further with the video, I'd just like to ask you all how you are feeling out of 10. I think I've been about a 7 this week. As I mentioned, there's been a roller coaster of emotions. There's been lots of highs and lots of lows. I'd also like to apologize if I become a little bit ranty in this video. It's been a week, as I mentioned, of highs and lows, and I think it becomes apparent when I get talking about it, but you'll see exactly why. So settle in, and I hope you enjoy what you see. It's Monday and the start of another really busy week. We've got a lot of hedge cutting to do. I'm actually leaving Dad in charge of milling for the first time ever. Ever since we've had the bucket, I've done all the milling and all the mixing, which is, it's going to be a new one for him, leaving him in charge of that. I'm just filling up with fuel because I'm off to Thornton to cut some hedges. I've got loads of hedges to cut. I'm well far behind Dad. And we've had more TV drama so far already today because we've just had a call from the APHA, which is Animal and Plant Health Authority, to say that because we had 2 reactors, they've tightened the parameters on the test. It's just something they do apparently, which means that one of the inconclusives now throws up as a reactor as well. So that's a bit of a stress that we didn't need. That's an in-calf cow that is going to have to go as well, which is just put a bit of a downer on the beginning of the week, but there's not a lot we can do about it. Again, we're going to just have to put up with it and hopefully crack on with the week and things will improve. I've just stopped for my lunch and we're up here at Thornton. We're cutting these hedges. So firstly, apologies, that is not finished. So don't judge me on that hedge. I've still got to shoulder the other side and then top it because I've only just roughed the top off. We're up here cutting these hedges and I wanted to talk a bit about hedgerow management because I get loads of people ask me about it. A lot of people from the general public, and I see stuff online as well where people are giving people grief saying that you're destroying habitat by cutting hedges. And actually, it's really important to cut hedges. So one of the things that we're trying to do when we're cutting a hedge, especially on a field like this that's permanent pasture and it doesn't have an electric fence, it's got like a barbed wire back fence, is we're trying to create a really solid buffer. So any cattle or animals that are in here aren't going to try and get through to whatever's the other side. I mean, it is only woodland here, but if that was a grass field of someone else's or even our own, they could try and burrow through a weak hedge and get through. So cutting that hedge creates a really dense woody growth, which actually is really important as well for wildlife, because you'll get in here, if you look, you get a bird wants to nest, they'll nest in there and they can be really protected from avian predators or even mammals that are trying to eat their eggs or whatever else. So you get a little songbird, that's really, really good habitat for them to be able to nest in. And as well, when they're thick like that in the bottom, if you get a ground nesting bird like a pheasant or a partridge, they'll nest just on the edge of the wood, and then when they have chicks, there's somewhere protected that those chicks can retreat to. So it's actually really important, both from a livestock management point of view to cut your hedges, but also from a wildlife point of view. And this hedge gets cut every year because this part of the farm isn't in a stewardship scheme, but all the hedges back at home, they get cut every second year. So we cut 50% one year and 50% the other, and that's also a really good thing to do because most bushes will fruit in the second year. So if you can leave it for that second year, there's always going to be some berries for a lot of the songbirds and so on to actually eat during the winter, which is good for them. And if you don't cut a hedge, there's a bit of a pond there. That's what happens to it. It goes all tall and woody and you lose all of that bottom growth. So that bit is quite thick, you can see, because it goes, there's a pond both sides of that hedge, so it never gets cut. But it just goes tall and woody and it ends up with no bottom in it. So you're not going to hold any animals and any livestock in, and it's not going to provide any habitat. So although it looks like a misnomer when you're actually cutting the hedges, it's actually really important from a wildlife point of view to give them a good trim. You might have also noticed that we cut some of the tree branches off, and we've been around the whole of the ground here. We go right up to that big wood on the top of the hill there. We've cut all the low hanging branches off because last year I had one catch on the top of the boom there. Wasn't used to it because my old hedge cut was a lot smaller, and it dropped and it smashed this pillar, and I had to have a new pillar on the tractor. So we said, right, we're going to go around and we're going to trim all these branches up. But it's really important to do that as well to any of your trees on your farm. It's to trim up those lower branches, because you're not doing the tree a disservice. A lot of these branches hang really low, and when they get leaf on them in the summer and they get wet, they'll just pull down. And what can happen is they then create sort of a crack from the main trunk where that branch comes off, and it gets water in there, and that's where you start and get rot. And a lot of these trees will rot from that. So if we want the trees to last longer and actually provide more carbon intake, then we need to trim them up. It seems backwards, but it's actually a lot better for the tree. It's Wednesday now, and I'm just hibernating out the wind a little bit in the shed because you can't hear me on these videos when I'm actually outside because it's so windy. Yesterday, on Tuesday, I had my grass mentor here, a guy called Jan Ledoux. And Jan has been trained by the British Grassland Society to help mentor people like us and other farmers into growing more grass and how to do it and how to have better quality grass. And it's completely free. So if you are a farmer, you're interested in it, go on the British Grassland website and put in your details. Just type in Grass Mentor on the search bar or whatever, or you can go on the HDB and link to it as well. It's completely free and it's really, really good. It's amazing what we learned from Jan, and we're going to work with him moving forward now to try and produce more grass. And I wanted to video some of that, but I couldn't because it was so windy and I'm chucking it down with rain. We were walking around the grass and you just couldn't hear or see anything on the videos. So I'm hopefully going to do a video on grass management in the spring when we start growing, and hopefully if we can, we'll get Jan back as well. But today is actually a really sad day because we're having the guys come and pick up those cows that went down with TB. So it's going to be a bit of a raw emotion one, I think. I think it's going to be, might be a bit of a tough watch. I see a lot of stuff on social media where people have said, they've lost X amount of cows to TB and they've gone on the lorry and how much it hurts them. And they often get comments from the militant vegan types who try and say like, oh, well, that animal was going to die anyway, and what's the difference? And there's obviously a difference. To anybody who has livestock can understand the difference, but until you actually put animals on a lorry like we have just now, it is hard to actually articulate it until you've been in that situation. And when you fatten an animal and it's bought, like from conception right through to the day you load it on the lorry, you know where that animal is going to end up. You know it's going to be in the food chain, and you kind of become accepting of that, because you kind of say, well, there's going to be people who enjoy this meal, whether it's they get the family round for a Sunday roast, and it's like people travel hundreds of miles to get together for a Sunday roast, and the memories that animal could create when it gets finally put into the food chain. And that there's always going to be an element of sadness no matter what you put on a lorry. Even those animals that have always been destined for it, when you put them on the lorry, there is an element of sadness to it. But the most overwhelming thing is pride that you've managed to achieve that, and you've got that animal into its prime, and you've managed to create this amazing protein from something that's non-digestible by humans and whatever else. And that feels amazing. But when you put cattle onto a lorry that's for TB, like we just did, you do feel that sadness even more so, because you've never reached their potential. But when you put the cow on, the reason why that cow is still in our herd, and it should be eating this behind me right now, it was in this group. And the reason why it's still in this herd, and that's quite an old cow that's been in here, it's probably in its like 7th or 8th calf. Why it's still here is because it's never gave us a reason to get rid of it. It's always got in calf, it's always had good feet, it's always ate well, it's always looked after its calf and produced a good weaning weight. It's always done the job that we wanted it to do. So to see it go on that lorry was, it was quite sad to see it happen. And I can't even imagine what it's like. That was just one breeding cow. The guy said that he'd actually picked up 58 from one farm yesterday, which I can't even imagine what that must be like for those guys. That is just, it's just utter devastation. That's the feeling. You don't get any pride from putting them on the lorry. Out of 10, just so that you know, having loaded that onto that lorry, I'm now probably like a 3 out of 10. That really hurts. That really gets you down from a farmer. No one can say that you don't care about your animals when you're a farmer, because you couldn't do this job. They can be really annoying sometimes. They can get you out of bed in the middle of the night. You have to work 365 days a year. Even on weekends when we work a rota, I'm still here in the morning feeding. You don't get time off on a very regular basis. You can't do this job if you don't love them. Like I say, 3 out of 10. It's not fun today. If you haven't done so already, or you haven't got one, go and get a copy of this week's Farmers Weekly. I keep moaning because they don't put me on the front cover, but they just ignore all of my messages. But I actually have an article in here on page 87 where I'm talking about how much you can learn from podcasts and whatever else, all the things that are available online. And also, there's loads of stuff in here about growing grass this week, so really good to go and get a copy. Treat yourself. And that's it for another video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you wouldn't mind giving me a like and a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And let me know how you are doing out of 10 in the comments down below. Now, we've got Storm Eunice rolling in this weekend. I reckon she's been out with the girls, had a few too many tequilas. One of them said something a little bit sketchy, and she's going to come home absolutely fuming, and she's going to blow this place apart. So make sure you look after yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.